What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to GamerFuzion. Beast of Reincarnation is finally out and the reception has split down the middle. This is not the usual story of critics loving something while players hate it. What actually happened is messier and a lot more interesting than that. Critics landed somewhere in the middle and almost nobody was willing to call it bad. Players landed noticeably lower than that, and on the very same day, a patch arrived that was meant to address the biggest complaint. So today we are breaking down what those reviews actually said. We will look at where players disagree with them. Then we will go through what the day one patch claims to fix. And we will finish on what you can realistically expect from here. Start with the critic side because the raw number undersells the picture badly. As of this video, Metacritic has the game sitting at 73 on PlayStation 5. That is drawn from 49 separate critic reviews. The PC version sits 1 point lower at 72. Metacritic files both of those under mixed or average. That label sounds harsher than the underlying data actually is. Look at the breakdown and you get 25 positive reviews against 24 mixed ones. And here is the part that genuinely matters. There are no negative reviews in that count at all. Not a single outlet out of 49 came away calling this a bad game. So the score is not being dragged down by people who hated it. It is being held in the middle by a very wide disagreement about how good it is. That is a completely different situation, and the number on its own does not tell you that. That disagreement is genuinely dramatic once you look at the individual outlets. At the top end, Vice gave it a 9.5 out of 10. Games Radar Plus came in right behind that with a 9. Those are not polite scores. Those are enthusiastic ones. Then at the other end, you have got VGC and Eurogamer. Both of them landed on a 6 out of 10. That is a gap of 3.5 points on the same game. You very rarely see a spread that wide on a major release. But the interesting part is what each side is actually talking about. The high scores keep pointing at the combat and the mobility and the customization. The lower scores keep coming back to optimization and to repetition. So reviewers largely agree on what this game does well. Where they split is on how much the rough edges should cost it. One group treated the technical problems as noise around a good game. The other treated them as part of what you are paying for. Now the player side, and this is where the gap really opens up. On Steam, the game is sitting at mixed as of this video. 52% of the user reviews are positive. It was also reported that only 54% of the first 164 were positive. So that number has been fairly consistent rather than a brief opening dip. Now put that next to a critic average of 73. You have got a real disconnect between two groups playing the same game. Roughly half the people who bought it on day one were not happy with what they got. Meanwhile, almost no reviewer was willing to call it bad. That is the kind of split that usually points at one specific cause. It is rarely a general disagreement about whether a game is well made, and in this case, it is not difficult to work out what that cause is. The complaints that keep repeating are technical rather than creative. Players are reporting stuttering and frame rates sitting well under 60. There are also reports of outright crashes on launch and on startup. On PC specifically, that list gets quite a bit longer. People have reported settings resetting from DLSS over to FSR on their own. There are complaints about film grain and about 4K options going missing. Several reports mention unusually low GPU usage. There are also crashes being reported on Steam Deck and on Intel systems. Now, think about why reviewers might weigh all of that differently. A lot of review coverage runs on consoles or on a small number of known machines. Players are running it across thousands of hardware combinations that nobody tested in advance, and we flagged exactly this risk on the channel before launch. This is Unreal Engine 5, and there was no public beta at all. The embargo also lifted at the exact moment the game unlocked. That combination meant the first real stress test was the players themselves. None of that makes the critic scores wrong. It just means the two groups were effectively reviewing different products. Which brings us to the patch itself. Game Freak acknowledged the problems and pushed a day one update out. It went live across all 3 platforms together rather than staggered. That is update 1.004. It reads as version 1.0.6 in-game. PlayStation 5, PC, and Xbox Series X and S all received it on launch day. So what does it actually claim to do? The notes list improved overall performance across all platforms. They also mention enhanced technical stability for a smoother gameplay experience, and they list optimized frame rate performance in various gameplay scenarios. On the bug side, the notes say it fixed multiple gameplay-related bugs. They also say it resolved several issues that could cause the game to crash. A number of players reported a genuinely large download attached to it as well. The exact size varies between reports though, so treat that particular detail loosely. But read those notes again and something stands out immediately. They are almost entirely generic. You get improved performance and enhanced stability, plus multiple bugs fixed. There is no list telling you which bugs were actually addressed. There is no mention of the specific PC issues that people have been reporting, and there is no known issues section attached to it at all. For a launch where the technical side is the whole story, that is a notable omission. There is no way for a player to check whether their particular problem was covered. If your crash was happening on an Intel system, nothing in there tells you anything. If your DLSS setting kept resetting itself, you are still guessing. To be fair to them, day one patches are usually finalized well before a game launches. So this was probably built before most of these reports even existed, but it does leave a lot of people waiting without knowing what they are waiting for. So did it actually work? Going by the reporting, since it landed only partially, coverage after the update suggests the biggest problems did not go away. Stuttering and crashes are still being reported by players on the current version. Some people have definitely seen improvement, which lines up with the claim of better overall performance. But the headline complaints have not been cleared. That is a large part of why the Steam score has stayed where it is. Normally, you would expect a launch score to start recovering once a fix lands. This one has not really moved yet. It is worth being precise about what that actually means, though. A day one patch improving things without solving everything is completely normal. So the question is not really whether this single patch fixed it. The question is what comes after it. On that front, the developers have committed to continued post-release updates and support. The wording is that additional fixes and improvements will come over time. Now, that is a general commitment rather than an actual schedule. There is no roadmap and no dated patch attached to it as of this video, so anyone telling you exactly when a specific fix arrives is guessing right now. What I would personally watch for is a second patch that names things. The difference between a studio on top of this and one that is not shows up in the detail. If the next update lists individual issues, that is a genuinely good sign. If it reads exactly like this one did, that tells you something as well. And there is a reason to be optimistic here that is worth saying out loud. The reviews found very little wrong with the game underneath the technical problems. Nobody is saying the combat is broken or that the design is bad. That makes this a fixable situation rather than a fundamental one. So that is where Beast of Reincarnation stands right now. 73 from critics with nothing negative across 49 reviews, 52% from players over on Steam, and a day one patch that helped without actually solving it. Every one of those numbers will move over the coming weeks, so treat all of this as a snapshot rather than a final verdict. Let me know down in the comments whether you are playing it, and more usefully, tell me what your performance has actually been like. That is the exact thing the scores are arguing about. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we will see you in the next one.